President Obama was a terrible president. President Biden was the worst president in the history of our country. President Bush should not have gone into the Middle East and blown the place up. So I don't give him high marks either. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. I give Trump very high marks. Goodbye, everybody.
And you don't have to be a mathematical genius to know that these are horrible, horrible, horrible numbers.
It was pretty good because it was my economy. We had had 75 straight months of job growth that I handed over to him.
Now, it's not often you find headlines with both Bush and Obama sharing the same sentiment, unless it's involving epic meme creations. But both former presidents joined forces to shoot down President Donald Trump's decision, or as they described it, a quote, colossal mistake, to shutter the US Agency for International Development.
Former Presidents Obama and George W. Bush and U2's Bono are saying goodbye to USAID. The unlikely trio teamed up via teleconference Monday to talk to employees on USAID's last day of operations. And the former presidents, in a rare move, rebuked Trump's decision to shutter the agency.
It all comes as Secretary of State Marco Rubio officially announced yesterday that the foreign aid arm has ceased operations. The agency experienced a rapid dismantling since President Trump's return to the White House, and massively in part thanks to the help of Doge. Rubio writes on X, "The era of government-sanctioned inefficiency is over. From now on, our foreign assistance programs will be accountable to the American taxpayer."
The shuttering of USAID is expected to lead to the deaths of millions around the world, according to a recent Time article. Former US Ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul, says, quote, "The destruction of USAID will go down in history as one of America's most significant foreign policy mistakes. We have no chance of competing with the Communist Party of China without instruments of influence like USAID. Hope our next president reverses this decision quickly."
As we know, it's been quite a week for the president. His big, beautiful bill set to strip healthcare from millions of Americans to foot the bill for tax breaks to the top 20% of earners in the United States passed the Senate and is on its way to the House, where it will face more pushback from Democrats and Republicans alike, showing just how unpopular the bill is.
We can't make everyone 100% happy. It's impossible. This is a deliberative body. It's a legislative process. By definition, all of us have to give up on our personal preferences. I never going to ask anybody to compromise core principles, but preferences must be yielded for the greater good. And that's what I think people are recognizing and come to grips with.
While the bill does contain tax cuts for basically everyone, their benefits are massively concentrated among the wealthiest Americans. In fact, 60% of the tax cuts would go to the top 20% of households. And you should know, just about every independent analysis agrees this bill would add trillions to the national debt. And to the extent the bill's tax cuts are going to be paid for at all, it'll be through slashing programs that benefit the poor.
All while his bromance with Elon Musk is in tatters. And speaking of the world's richest man who shall never be let off the hook for cozying up to authoritarianism until it impacted subsidies for his own companies, well, he helped cut around 90% of USAID's foreign aid contracts during Doge's rampage back in February, overseeing the depletion from the workforce from 10,000 to less than 300. And now the agency will be absorbed by the State Department, where it will be replaced by a new organization called, wait for it, America First.
The US led on international efforts to combat HIV, AIDS, treatment, prevention, and there's an initiative called PEPFAR, which is credited with saving 26 million lives in the last 20 years. It was part of the foreign aid freeze. Then there was a limited waiver. Its services are disrupted. And UN aid says if permanently discontinued, there will be another 4 million AIDS-related deaths by 2029. So if you look at that example, which is backed up by data, in 2023, 630,000 people died of AIDS-related illnesses, then perhaps Bill Gates's figures are not wrong. Millions of lives could be lost.
First of all, the program, the AIDS,
and it's with this that both Barack Obama and George W. Bush decided they couldn't sit around and say nothing. They had to speak out. In a farewell video message to staffers on Monday, Obama said, quote, "Gutting US aid is a travesty and it's a tragedy because it's some of the most important work happening anywhere in the world.
You've seen progress. I mean, there has been progress in a lot of areas that is now, it seems, in peril.
In the health domain, the progress is measurable on malaria, on TB, on the 25 million lives saved by virtue of President Bush's PEPFAR program. This is progress every American can feel proud of. And that's the vast majority of global health progress.
Let me just jump in. There's 25 million lives saved because of PEPFAR, which is, as you said, George W. Bush started this. I mean, that's an extraordinary thing I mean, I've seen this. This access to retrovirals, access to HIV treatment, it has saved, 120 million lives. That's an extraordinary thing. What is going to happen to those people? Because the administration says, well, PEPFAR is going to continue.
But it's not. They've fired all the people who administer the programming. All across Africa, you have nurses and health workers and people going out to educate communities who are no longer being paid, who no longer are able to do this work. So again, the first important thing to do is to set the record straight. The programming that the Secretary of State says is continuing at scale is not. It has been slashed, and it is now unrecognizable in the communities where it was saving all those lives.
His comments were then echoed by George W. Bush, albeit with a rather stronger-handed message. The Republican spoke about cuts to the president's emergency plan for AIDS relief, saying, quote, "Is it in our national interests that 25 million people who would have died now live? I think it is, and so do you." He added, quote, "You've showed the great strength of America through your work, and that is your good heart." Now, in response to these comments from both Obama and Bush, the White House told the Daily Beast that America's international partners, quote, "want to be self-reliant." And the thing is, rebranding an agency that seeks to help other countries as America First, it kind of speaks to what George W. Bush had warned about years ago, with people like Donald Trump hell-bent on pushing the United States towards isolationism.
What's interesting about our country, if you study history, is that there are some isms that occasionally pop up. One is isolationism, and it's evil twin protectionism, and it's evil triplet nativism. So if you study the 20s, for example, there was an American First policy that said, who cares what happens in Europe? Well, what happened in Europe mattered eventually because of World War II. There was Smoot-Hawley, which was a part of an economic policy, which basically said we don't want trade. In other words, let's throw up barriers. And there was an immigration policy that I think during this period argued we had too many Jews and too many Italians, therefore we should have no immigrants. And my point to you is we've been through this kind of period of isolationism, protectionism, nativism. I'm a little concerned that we may be going through the same period. I hope that these isms pass, which would then allow for a more orderly look at immigration policy. Rational immigration policy eventually passed.
And as I said yesterday, right, regarding the big, beautiful bill, the cruelty of Republicans is laid bare to the point that they even admit that this bill is bad for their own constituents, but vote for it anyway. They know fine well it will gut healthcare for millions of Americans putting their own health at risk, but will sign off on it if it means cutting a check for the top 20% of earners across the United States. It's gross, it's exploitative, and as we've come to expect from Republicans, it's par for the course. So it should come as absolutely no surprise that they want to shutter an organization that seeks to help other people.
President Trump had issued some statements throughout this process saying and urging, insisting that this bill does not cut Medicaid. He's also said some things, he says he doesn't think I'm too much of a smart person. And I'll tell you one thing. It doesn't take a smart person to know if you're being lied to. President Trump, you're either being lied to or you are lying to the American people. Because this bill represents, in the text of this bill, the largest and greatest loss of healthcare in American history. 17 million Americans will lose their healthcare on this bill, not undocumented people, not quote unquote the disgusting term illegal, but 17 million Americans will have their healthcare cut from this bill. On this point of tax on tips, As one of the only people in this body who has lived off of tips, I want to tell you a little bit about the scam of that text, a little bit of the fine print there. The cap on that is $25,000. While you're jacking up taxes on people who make less than $50,000 across the United States, while taking away their SNAP, while taking away their Medicaid, while kicking them off of the ACA and their healthcare extensions. So if you're at home and you're living off tips, you do the math.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out our new Truth Over Lies collection at store.MeidasTouch.com. All 100% USA union made.